Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Uncorked podcast. My name is Brian, and I'm here once again with Kevin, and we're here for episode 9. It's been a little while. We wrapped up our Dramface Top 40 review a month or so ago, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I don't remember exactly how long it's been, but it was about time we got back on the microphones and had a little bit of a whiskey chat. It's going to be a little bit more laid back. We got a few topics to discuss, and should be good. Before we get started, if this is your first time listening to me, if you found me on or us in this case, but if you found us on one of the podcast networks, my name is Brian. I primarily run a YouTube channel, Whiskey Uncorked, whiskey with no E, where I do whiskey reviews and some a little bit more long form in some cases, talking a little bit more about than just doing the reviews, but talking about some industry stuff, some news stuff, just general opinions. So if you're looking for some more content, you can check me out there. But welcome back, Kevin. It's good to have you. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
glad to be back. Glad to be back. Doing well. Doing well. Yeah, it's definitely been a bit, and definitely have had a few drams since our last one, and I'm looking forward to the next few.
All right. Well, with that, why don't we see what we're drinking? It's a the standard way of introducing these podcasts, I think.
Yeah, works for me.
But what are you drinking? Anything good tonight?
Yeah, I think it's very very good. I am on the sort of last dregs of one of my favorites, at least more recent. Well, maybe not more recent. Um, recently in favor bottles of it's an old Laphroaig Cartridge release. It's the PX cask from a couple years ago,
Uh,
and I've got like one or two pours left after this one. And then a month or two ago, when you were in town, where I was able to find a backup, luckily. On Dusty Shelf.
yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one
I'm
for sure.
more willing to kill this one off because I like it so much now that I have a backup.
Yeah, it was a favorite amongst many. That was a bottle. I have one, and I think I had ended up with like 2 or 3 Cartridge bottles open, so I didn't open it, and I still have not opened it, but I've tasted yours. I have last year's open. I'm enjoying that one. Uh, but yeah, that one kind of got lost, and I guess I don't 100% regret it because I've got a really good bottle of Lafroig around. But cool, cool. Well, um, I guess I'll just ask myself what I'm drinking here, and I'm about to finish off a bottle as well. But this one is I've done a review on, and not soup. No, I'm not. I have no emotions over it leaving, but it's the Ben Riach, the Smoky 12,
Ah,
and
yes.
I gave it a 5 in the review. I talked about how I absolutely loved it. It was in a blind from you that I was like, "Oh my god, this is great." And then, I bought a bottle, kinda got again, another one that kinda got lost in the shuffle a little bit, and it didn't really get opened, and I opened it last year and liked it, was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I remember." And then the more I drank it and it's getting ready to do the review, every pour I had, I liked it a little less, and I think I'm liking it a little bit better now, but don't know if it would be enough to break out of the 5 average, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah, fair
finish
enough.
this off. I'm gonna finish this one off, and then I'm gonna open a new bottle in honor of, a fallen distillery that we'll find out about in just a few minutes, but,
Oh no.
yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Alright, so let me pour this new one, so what I'm gonna open up right now, this will make more sense, or maybe I don't know if I did I tell you? Anyway,
No, you didn't.
it'll make more sense in a few minutes, but this is a old particular bottle of Benrinnes.
Ah,
It
yes.
is, it's 10 years old. It says one of 236 bottles charged from a bourbon barrel. The box says there's a sticker on it that says it's a KNL exclusive. Um,
Mhm.
it does say it was distilled in November 2010 and bottled in January of 2020. 2022, which would make it 11 years old. So it must have sat in a some other container for a few months before they actually
Mm,
bottled it at least. But, yeah, I just, I've got 1 pour left or so of, my previous bottle of Ben so that'll be a last drops review at some point on the
okay.
channel. But, figured this was a good one to lead things off with and see how this one goes.
Yeah. Surely it will be good, because as we all know, everybody loves Ben Rennis, right?
Yeah,
We will not see any evidence to the contrary today.
it oh, it is 57.5%, but yeah, yes, Ben Rennis, uh, I guess we'll talk about it in just a couple minutes, but, um, took a little bit of a tumble in the Dram Face top 40, which we are going to discuss briefly. Probably not enough to make a whole episode worth, but,
Mhm.
figured since we spent a whole 5 hour or 5 episodes, like 9 hours or 10 hours
Yeah.
or something like that of content. They did release an update, a few weeks back, and figured we'd
Mhm.
touch base on that, but
Yeah, and if you listen to those or watch those, you knew that I professed Ben Rennis as one of my pet distilleries. So I played taps. I,
yeah,
I performed a ceremony to grieve my fallen pet distillery. But
wrote wrote
um,
angry letters, the whole deal, yeah.
yeah, but
Well,
Ben
before we
Rennis
get
will be.
into before before we get into the whole Dram Face thing,
Mhm.
um, what about, just you in general and whiskey? Have you found any fantastic bottles you wanna tell the world about? Any utter s
Hmm.
bottles of utter swill that you wanna warn everyone about? Uh, how's whiskey been treating you in the last month or 2?
Whiskey's been treating me great. It was kind of weird, like kind of like during like the depths of winter, which is kind of a lot of people's. That's kind of their whiskey time of the year. I was actually a little bit softer on it. Like I was still enjoying it, but it was maybe my attention was maybe shifted a little bit elsewhere. But over kind of the start of the spring, maybe March time, um, I'm getting more back into it, and especially the last month or two, it's kind of been a focus of mine for sure. Um, in terms of like I haven't found like a whole lot of like new bottles and stuff that I'm like professing my love for, mostly because the last few weeks, month or two maybe, I've been kind of in an effort to um, decrease my open bottle count. I kind of started to get overwhelmed with how much I had open, what my choices were, and kind of realized that with so much open, I wasn't really ever drinking anything enough to ever kill it. So I just kept getting like the open bottles were snowballing on top of the open bottles. So I've kind
Yeah.
of made a conscious effort the last few months to stop opening things. I'm still buying stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to be patient with some of it until I kind of have a more manageable shelf inventory. But I've definitely refound some bottles that I've, they've been open for a while again. They kind of lingered. Maybe I didn't have the highest thoughts on them earlier. I just finished off it was a Deanston, uh, the 2008, I believe it was Oloroso cask
Right.
release. That's kind of early on, kind of down to like midway to 2/3 through the bottle. It was good, but it maybe wasn't, inspiring my love or anything like that. But then that I kind of started, decided like, all right, this is going to be one of the bottles I'm going to kill off. It got pretty good.
Yeah.
So, um, I really enjoyed that one. It's kind of unfortunate. I only enjoyed like the last third of the bottle, but um,
And you're
but at
preaching
least
to
I
the
at least
choir.
at least I at least I found out what was in there. Kind of corrected it. So yeah, definitely kind of on a um, relive old memories and find old friends again kind of mood lately. Trying to get rid of those.
Well, I can sympathize with that a lot. I'm actually I'm somewhat happy to hear you say that because that is my experience so frequently. Same thing, I have a lot of bottles open and, probably don't get to focus in on one bottle all that much at one time. I'm constantly rotating. I'm,
Yeah.
opening new stuff, this and that. And then I probably couldn't count how many bottles, uh, that I had that same exact experience. I gets down to that point where I'm like, "Yeah, it's been here for maybe a couple of years or something. I should just drink it." And I start doing that, and I'm like, "Oh my god, why didn't the whole bottle taste like that?"
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
me more than anything, I know it, and that's maybe a little bit of I don't know if it's
Well, some bottles I think need
hereditary.
that oxidized time in the
Mhm.
in the glass.
Sure, I'm sure that to
A
some
mix of both,
degree
I'm
there's
sure.
yeah, I'm sure there's some degree of the bottle opening up the more you get down, into the bottle with more and more air. But, I mean, this is after a couple years of, sitting at half full or something, so it shouldn't be too huge of a thing, but again, who knows? All I know is, there's been a lot of bottles, I think, like you were saying, I like them, they were fine, and then I'm like,
Mm.
"I'm gonna drink it," and put it kind of in my bottle kill area and just so I would go back to it more frequently, and, yeah, just really ended up loving those bottles, many of those bottles, so,
Yeah, it happens a lot.
yeah, I guess for me,
Yeah,
most of
what have you been drinking lately?
well, I've been posting 2 reviews a week on the channel, so
Yeah,
most
that
of the stuff that I've been opening has been reviewed and is on there, um, but as you know, I did recently get my first bottle of Loch Lomond. It is a cask strength store pick refill hogshead, and my we talked about this in the other Dramface,
mm,
uh, episodes that
yeah.
I had Loch Lomond before. I never owned a bottle. I'd done a couple tastings. Didn't, uh didn't light me on fire, but, this bottle I got from Binny's, I, like, immediately texted you and said, "Please go get me another one."
Yep, absolutely, like
I don't know if it's, one of the Chardonnay yeast ones that a lot of people talk about, and, but it certainly,
it feels
resembles
like it.
that.
Yes,
Yeah,
it feels like it to me.
very
Yeah.
effervescent, hyper fruity, just that tropical stone fruit, probably every type of fruit, fresh fruit, and I opened that bottle, and that night, I was like, I need to put this away now, or I'm gonna drink the whole damn bottle right now." So,
Yeah, yeah, I went
uh,
down and got you a backup, and I got me one as well, and yeah, it's got that wine fizz for sure.
yeah,
That bright,
so
fresh fruit, it's great.
that's probably the one that's really stood out. I don't think I've opened too much else, outside of all of the 18-year-old whiskeys I've been opening, which I don't think anybody will blame me, but, other and, some bourbons and stuff like that,
Sure.
I another I I was into getting, Old Scout bourbons for a while there, it's MGP whiskey,
Mm,
um, and they really got a lot of attention back in the day, they had higher age statements on the bottles before they ran out MGP ran out of stock. Kinda missed that wave, but they're like, you know, 45, $50, $55 now, I'm not sure exactly what they cost, but, they're 115-ish proof single barrels if you can get the
alright.
store picks, the barrel
Mm,
picks.
sure.
They have, non-picks as well, but, I bought one back when I lived in Denver, and I had amassed several of them, because they seemed hard to find, I didn't see a lot of them, so I kinda went on a little bit of a binge and just bought one when I saw one, and they were good value, and I opened up this one from Denver, and it paid the price for not opening it up sooner because it's kind of a holy crap. It's really
Nice.
nice, and it's a very savory bourbon. I don't know if everyone would like it as much
Mhm.
as I do, but, it's a little savory with just enough kinda brown sugar, and I was like, "Man, if I would open this up, I coulda went bought 3 more bottles," 'cause, uh, but
Yeah,
that's the price or that's the risk you take by not opening
by not
your
opening.
bottles immediately, so, um, yeah, that's probably about it. There's a local group here that does some bourbon store picks, and I pretty much grab whatever they put out because, the guy who's doing the picks really knows what he's doing, so Doesn't really matter what brand it is. You can pretty much trust it's gonna be good. So a little bit of that in terms
Nice.
of stuff that I haven't reviewed on the channel, but I haven't been drinking too much bourbon. I kinda have to remind myself. I had a pretty big bourbon phase over the winter, probably when you were kinda going through your semi break, which I took last year. Um,
Mhm.
Slowed down on the whiskey stuff and then kinda came back twice as hard almost, so but yeah, I still gotta remind myself to have a few glasses of bourbon once in a while.
Yeah,
That stuff's pretty good too.
get it.
But I'm gonna see how this Ben
Yeah,
Rennis.
give it a go. Let me know how, neck pour's doing.
Ooh, yeah, that was interesting. Meaty. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was very fruity, and then it got super meaty, like, right away. Like, it was like this very abrupt transition
Turns it from
from
fruity to meaty, nice.
yeah. That's gonna be a fun bottle to get to know, I think. Yeah, a little bit bitter on the lingering. Yeah, that's good.
Nice.
Probably
Great
needs
first
a little bit of
impressions.
air, but yeah.
Sure, sure. First
But,
impressions are good to pick those.
yeah, especially with about Ben Rennis's, which we'll probably be talking about here in just a second. Ben Rennis again is, the one I'm finishing right now, it was sherry finish, but had a pretty decent sherry influence to it,
Mhm.
and the whole bottle was really it was good, but it was maybe semi unremarkable, maybe a little too much sherry for me. You could tell you could get a little bit of meatiness. It resembled some Mortlock and stuff like that I've had.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and I've had actually this exact same experience. I had an 11-year-old 46% Cadenhead's Ben Rennis that was sherried, and it was a
Mhm,
darker color. And again, it was kind of like I drank it whenever I was gonna have like better sherried whiskeys.
mhm.
Um, just kind of like just to kind of get my palate into it. But like the bourbon Ben Rennis's I've had, they're like completely different. They're incredible. They're great. So
Yeah.
I've had a weird experience with sherry Ben Rennis.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I have
bourbon barrels are
yeah, yeah, that's usually where I tend to go refill sherry or bourbon. I mean, those are my preferred barrel types regardless. But I have had a few, like that Mortlock 10-year-old Mortlock I got from Binny's is super dark, and now that it's opened up a little bit, it's a nice meaty sherry. You can tell it's Mortlock. We'll see how that develops. I probably should do a review, but I reviewed the Coila. Um, should probably review the Mortlock at some point. I'll be drinking a Mortlock probably in a little bit, but it's a little different. So we'll leave it at that. But I guess since we're on Ben Rennis right now, maybe this is a good time to go see uh,
yeah.
what Dramface top 40 changes have happened
Let's
since
do it.
we talked about it last. Again, it shouldn't take too long, but swap
Yeah,
over
currently
here.
Ben Rennis has Rose.
Yeah, if
What?
you a shocking turn of events. Real quick, if you aren't familiar with this, if you're just finding this, you haven't watched the
Mhm.
other stuff that we did. Dramface.com is I have no affiliation with it. It's a website that is primarily started by Roy from the Aquavite channel here on YouTube with a number of other people. And it's primarily a review site where they do reviews with some more in-depth anecdotal articles, and they do some other feature-length articles on news aggregation, that sort of thing. Really great website, and their whole thing is the Dram Face thing is people can post anonymously if you follow it and you follow like they have a podcast as well. You can kind of figure out who certain people are, but
So
um,
what you're saying is I can stop guessing which writer you are? You're
yeah,
you're you're taking your head out of the ring? You're not one of them?
yeah, I am not. I'm not on there. I tried my own blog and, realized I didn't like I still like writing about whiskey, but it's actually surprisingly, even to me, it's easier to just to talk about it than try to write an article that doesn't sound like a 12-year-old wrote it. So, um, even supposedly a good writer, but at this point, uh, computers have rotted my brain. So, yeah. Eh, anyways, so this website. They do a top 40 Scotch malt whiskey distilleries, so only Scotch distilleries and only malt distilleries. You can go on here. This is crowdsourced. This is voted on by people. You can go to the website right now, as long as you have a Gmail address. You can click in the top right, the top 40 distilleries, and then click on the vote here link, and you'll go to a Google Sheet survey, and it's just a list of all the distilleries. You select the box next to 10 of them or less, and you click submit. You don't rank them, and then they take all of those votes, and every so often they aggregate all the old votes and all the new votes, and the ranking is based on how many times that distillery landed in the top 10 of all of the votes. So, uh, if you can go vote for this right now. It won't immediately reflect in the voting, but yeah, the more people that vote, the more accurate of a view of the whiskey community we're going to get in terms of their opinion on what the top 40 distilleries are.
Yep.
Did I forget anything?
No,
I'm
that
out
pretty
of
much
I'm
covered
out of
it.
breath.
Like,
So
just to sort of reiterate, like you don't rank the 10, you're just
yeah,
picking your 10 favorites. So um no, look at Tamdu there. That means 75 people picked it as one of their top 10. It wasn't
yeah.
ranked number 40 by any average.
So there's
That could work out.
this ranking just has five, just over has over just has just over 1,500 votes now. The last time it was over 1,000. So we got about 500 more votes or so, I think.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, even 75 people voting in the top 10, voting Tamdu into the top 10. Maybe they were all their 10th ranked distillery, whatever, we don't know. But that was enough to get it at number 40 here. Some of them are separated just by a vote or two. So after this last update, not a ton of changes, a little bit of shuffling. So again, we won't talk about it too
Yeah.
much longer than this. We probably already talked about it longer than we will the rest of the rest of the thing. But uh, yeah, we figured why not? We talked about it for 5 whole episodes, so
Yeah.
let's
A
jump
quick
into it.
update.
Yeah. So the first big thing that we're seeing here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my screen. I'm sharing the screen of Dramface .com. So just that people can follow along. There's some other symbols and things here, but the first big one, as we've mentioned, Ben Rinnes has fallen out of the top 40 and fallen pretty hard. They lost 7 spots.
Yeah, which is a
Uh,
crazy number of spots compared to
yeah,
everything else.
yeah. This is by far the biggest mover. Uh, as Kevin mentioned earlier, it's one of his favorite distillers. I'm really liking it. It's a distillery you can basically only try through independent bottlings. There is a flora and fauna bottling, 16 years old, but that's not available here in the States at least. So,
Mhm.
not, we were a little shocked it made it. I think it was number 40 last time. I was going to go check and see it doesn't, we don't get those stats here. But I think it was number 40 last time,
Uh,
or
it's
just,
oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because we don't know if it's 41 or 42 or 43.
yeah,
Yeah,
it dropped 7 spots. We don't know what
yeah.
it's
We
actually
don't know
ranked
where
at.
it landed. Yep.
Um, so yeah, we were both applauding the community for ranking it that high, a distillery that most people have never heard of. It's hard, yeah, well, it's not hard to get independent bottlings of it, but if you don't know what it is, you probably pass on it pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it seems that in the last 500 votes, none of them
None of
know
them.
about Ben Rennis or they are
Yeah.
not fans.
Yep. Yeah, and then even just kind of looking again at kind of like especially the bigger numbers, the minus ones, the plus ones are kind of whatever. But
Yeah.
then the next one you see is Bowmore, and yet again another strike at my heart. So um,
Yeah.
this was not a great update for me personally, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
We're 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 finding out how terrible of taste you have in whiskey. So,
Yeah,
what I'm learning.
everyone's rejecting my opinion.
Before we get to Bowmore, there is a new entry into the list as
Yes,
well
yes,
in
yes.
Glengoyne, which is pretty. I mean, it's surprising, but it's not surprising, right? I think Glengoyne is a known name.
Mhm.
As more people vote, we're going to reach different corners of the internet, and more people know what Glengoyne is. Glengoyne
Yeah,
makes good whiskey. It's a little underproofed for us. We don't have access to the teapot dram, which I
yeah,
know some people have uh, had issues with the price increases on that. But
yeah.
um, I have
And then
Glengoyne 21. It's nice. It's soft. It's needs more proof, some more ABV. It
yeah.
needs not to be filtered. But yeah,
And again, we kinda talked about this, I think, during our specific episodes on this, is, like, the more outreach it gets, the more votes it gets, you're gonna see more than likely the more recognizable names shift
yeah,
towards the top, right? Because that
yeah,
initial voting core were, like, the nerds of the
yeah,
online community specifically.
yeah.
So you're gonna get more of, like, the geeky distilleries up there early, and then as it kinda gets to more the average person, yeah, those name brands are gonna probably inch up. I would think.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you there for sure. Which makes sense from obviously as a geek, or it's a little unfortunate to see some of your favorite distilleries kind of not get the recognition that you think they should. But you just got to get your friends to vote, I guess, and get them back up there. But yeah, if you don't have a core range, you're gonna
Yeah.
struggle.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
um, Bowmore, we talked about them. Their core range generally not thought of super highly in
Yeah.
the geeky community, although they dropped and they're a very prominent name. Um, the independent bottlings that do exist for Bowmore tend to be higher age statement and do tend to be a little bit more on the pricey side.
Mhm.
So, um, but yeah, the Bowmores that you've shared with me are very good. I finally got my first bottle of Bowmore as well. So I'm from
Mhm.
Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. I had a pour or two out of there, liking it quite a bit so far. We'll
One
see.
hey,
We'll see where
one
it
thing with
goes.
these results that I think would be pretty fascinating and probably more telling than maybe just kind of this cursory glance is looking at the previous list and just
Mhm.
comparing the number of votes and seeing
Yeah,
like how many votes that each distillery gained from the new 500. Because then you could ask, did Mortlock jump Bowmore or did Bowmore fall in
yeah.
proportionally kind of?
Yeah, they do
So
that for the top 10 where they
yeah,
give you, but they don't do it for the other ones, which, if you someone from Dramface is listening,
yeah, why
yeah,
not? Yeah,
we care. Let us know. You have
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
a
Shouldn't
slight
be that
form or
hard.
anything, but yeah, that would be good for sure. Um, but
Yeah.
we'll, put that on your list of, um, angry letters to
Angry
write.
letters. All right, it'll be a few weeks, but I've got too many angry letters to write. But we'll get there.
So we're not gonna go through all of these,
No, no,
but, Dornoch is another one we spent some time discussing last time, and, that probably every one of these that goes by, the reason why we were wondering why it was ranked and in the top 40 at all is gonna be less and less relevant,
mhm,
because at the time that this that the first, release of these numbers came out on dramface.com anyways, not many people had tasted Dornoch whiskey.
yeah,
Um, so we had assumed that some of that popularity was from their independent bottlings and then the Thompson brothers, because obviously, as you can see on the screen, Dornoch is run by the Thompson brothers who have done independent bottlings and they do some blending as well. And basically, they're one of the more respected, more sought after independent bottlings. Their bottles sell out
mhm,
pretty quickly, and
absolutely.
but they dropped a few spots, so maybe that's evening out a little bit. But all as time goes by, more and more people are going to have a chance to try their actual Dornoch whiskey. extraordinarily small whiskey, 12,000 liters per year,
Mhm.
and so it'll be interesting to see where they settle.
Yeah, that'll be
Uh,
fascinating one to
time to
follow,
All
for
right.
sure.
So just kind of taking a little bit of a glance through the rest of this list. We see Mortlock jump up a couple spots, but yeah, Osaka's Dornock and Bowmore fell, as you mentioned. Who knows?
Mhm.
Mountain jumps up a little bit. Ball Blair drops a little bit, which we talked about Ball Blair maybe having some momentum and that other whiskeys are catching up to them in price. And there was some rumblings that maybe their whiskey was getting better. It seems like, yeah, that might be still in the
Flux.
hardcore geeky community,
Yeah.
but as they did drop at least a couple spots, well, 3 spots. So,
Mhm.
um, another one that would be nice to see what the actual votes were. But, a win for you, Linkwood jumped up a couple spots, so that's
Ah,
good to see. So
gotta win.
you don't completely know what you're talking about, but, uh, Isle of
Gave me
Ramsay
a
jumped up a couple spots. Oh, man, let's see. Then we got a bunch of Helds, Highland Park drops. I guess they're gonna do I wonder if the rebranding they're gonna rebrand some of their bottles, it looks like they're gonna drop that Viking theme. Wonder if that will help them or not. I personally think that it would be better if they just up the ABV on their core range, but, um,
Yeah.
Ben Nevis Ben Ben Nevis, one of my favorites, drops 1 spot to Aquila, it looks like.
Yep, yep,
Um,
yep.
that's okay, it's not surprising. But Aquila, yeah, another one that core range doesn't have a great reputation, but people absolutely adore independent bottling, so, yeah, Ben Nevis, people like the 10, I think people like their core range, it's just not there's just not much of it.
Yeah, hard to find.
So, yeah. Loch Lomond drops a couple spot, another one that, had seemed to have some momentum, but maybe with things broadening in terms of who's voting here, that one takes a hit a little bit.
Yep.
Um, of course, as soon as I find a Loch Lomond that I absolutely love, it drops a couple spots. Edgered Hour, pet
Yeah,
favorite of
I've
yours,
never
jumps up a couple
swapping
spots.
with Loch Lomond, like
Yeah,
jumping finalist. That's, like, kind of
pretty
interesting.
much.
So, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
huge win for me. Like that.
Uh,
Loch
Kleinlich
Lomond
holding
is
steady, one of my as we talked about extensively, could be top 3 distillery, but if I were to base it on the current bottle of Clymatish 14 I have, this would be number 127 or something like that because it's absolutely disgusting. But,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that batch variation, brutal.
yeah, I mean, I'm okay with some batch variation, but this is something else. That's
Yeah.
it's a different issue. Another video. So we're approaching the top 10 now. We see Deanston and Ardbeg swapping spots, so Ardbeg back into the top 10.
Yeah, I did
Um
not expect that.
Yeah, that was one that we talked about quite a bit. We'll talk about it a little bit more, later. We've got a little thing planned for that here in this episode, but,
Mhm.
they just released a spectacular I don't think that didn't have anything to do with this ranking.
No, no,
This all
definitely not.
happened, I think, right before that was released. So it'll be interesting to see if that has any impact. But seeing them just jump back in the top 10 again puts a little bit of a squashing on the whole people don't like Ardbeg anymore
Yeah,
argument.
yeah, or
Clearly, they're
people
still liking it.
or at least people are tired of Ardbeg's,
Yeah.
shtick.
We'll talk about
Um
that a little bit more in depth
Mhm.
a little bit later. Otherwise, things holding
Yeah.
pretty steady. We see
Uh,
Ardna Markin, which we
Ardbeg.
talked about that that was a number 2 overall last time behind Springbank. It does drop 2 spots here. Still gains a number of votes. The percentage though dropped about
Yeah,
2%.
okay.
But yeah,
Yeah,
another new distillery that we're like, this I don't think number 2, no. Like, this is riding a little bit of a hype
Yeah.
wave. It's on its way there. I don't think there's any signs that it's not making whiskey that will at some time be capable of putting it number
Yeah.
2, but
10,
It
15
seemed a
years, it
little
could
early.
very easily be up there.
Yeah. I mean, and it's no knock. I mean, they out of all the new distilleries, I think you and I both agree, of the ones we've gotten to try at least, it's by
Mhm.
far and away probably the best distillery. We're both fans of Ardnamurk, and we just
Yeah.
number 2 beating out Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich especially seemed
It was a
generous.
tough it was tough. Yeah.
But, Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich, jumping up in the number 2 and 3 spots, which I think, uh, makes me feel a little bit better. Um, don't know if Ardnamurk should be 4 yet. I'm not, but number 2 was a bridge too far for me. I'm okay with number 4. I think 7, 8, somewhere in there, I would feel even better, but, uh, hey, everyone's spoken, and of course, Springbank remains number 1,
Mhm.
although, they did lose a couple percentage points. They went from 67% to 65.7, so,
Yeah,
about a percent and a half actually,
but,
but
you
not
know, kind of again harkening back, we kinda theorized the reason that might happen. Is especially because I believe what is Bunnahabhain's, percentage right now? Like 40, yeah. It's
46.4.
got a 20% lead.
Yeah,
So we definitely theorize that some people could move their vote from Springbank to
go for
support a different distillery,
it. Yeah.
which I did actually. Um,
Okay.
so if you look at my top 10, Springbank's not clicked, but that's because I know it's gonna be number 1 for a long, long time, so
So not only do you h love terrible distilleries, but you're sabotaging the entire vote on Dramface
yeah,
right now.
yeah. Yes, I
Well,
am.
I can't believe I keep asking you to come back here. You are a menace.
Apparently, it's not helping.
Yeah, yeah, I guess not. Well, yeah, I guess not. Uh,
All my actual top 10s are falling,
yeah.
except for 2 apparently.
So it seems like we've probably entered a phase in this vote. 'Cause I think they expected it to hit 1,500 votes a little bit sooner than it did, or well, I think because they have the date up here. So they ran this new one
Yeah, May
on,
6th through
6th of
15th.
May. So, yeah, so that's about right. They posted this information, right after they collected it. So I think it took them a little bit longer to hit 1,500 respondents. But, yeah, my recommendation to everyone is, share this with your whiskey groups, you know, uh, more and more people to vote on this. Depending on, the corner of the whiskey universe, the whiskey landscape you tend to live in, we'll keep getting a more accurate view of the overall picture of what people are thinking about whiskey, and that'll help not only new drinkers, but, maybe challenge some other people's biases and that sort of thing. Kevin and I know everything, so it doesn't really help us at all, but we talked about how useful we thought this whole thing was. I'm joking, obviously, but,
I find it
um,
I find it kinda weird they have the key in the Springbank.
yeah.
Like, that seems like a
I
weird place for the key.
And I didn't double check to see if it was actually accurate, where the icons were actually
Yeah,
correct or not, but,
yeah, the
um,
last snapshot, they were all wrong, or
so,
some of them were anyway, yeah.
well, I think, for me, interesting, obviously, outside of Ben Rennis just, free falling for
Eating
probably
dirt,
no
apparently,
probably
yeah,
no I mean, no reason whatsoever because it's not like their independent bottling suddenly got worse or anything, but,
yeah,
um, just obviously probably awareness, which is
yeah.
unfortunate because at least if it was up there, more people would maybe consider grabbing a bottle and trying it for themselves. But, any thoughts about Dram Face and top 40 distilleries before we move on, or
No,
maybe from
I really like Dramface as a website. I think it does a lot of good things. I think it's a net positive, especially for the Scotch whiskey community. It provides a nice little hub for people to kind of get information and post reviews. Um, and as for the top 40, maybe I expected a little bit more moderate amounts of movement.
yeah,
I know that we there were a couple that moved like 3, and then other than Ben Rennis, a couple threes. That was kind of about it, other than like one and twos. I expected maybe a little bit more. That's just the
Yeah,
way it fell, and
I definitely think I see it. I'm pouring another dram here because I poured a small dram of the Ben Rennis, but I'm gonna pour some Mortlock from distilled from 1990,
oh, yeah.
distilled in 1990. Sorry, 17 years old. Oloroso, 54.7. Might be a refill cask, not sure, but getting low. I've had this one open forever. I bought this one
Mm.
back when we went up to Madison in the Mad Max times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting.
Madison, Wisconsin. That's where where I went to college. Go Badgers. We went up there that first Christmas. I drove to Wisconsin from Denver, and then we went up to Madison. It was a ghost town.
Mhm.
It's usually quiet over the holidays, but this was a little weird. That's when we discovered the upstairs at Riley's Wines of the World.
Yeah,
Not sure if their selection is as good as it was back then. I think maybe they
I
might.
don't. I think it's probably tailed off a little.
Yeah,
In my, I've been there a few other times, and
yeah.
it's
We
been
got there before the
still
boom,
there.
and
Yeah.
we brought home some pretty nice bottles from that trip.
Mhm.
But this is one of those. It's getting kind of low. Um, and I've been wanting to open up another. I have the Benny's Mortlock open, but I have some other older ones that I've wanted to open up, and this one's kind of been clogging the stream. So, because I don't like having multiple whiskeys open that are the same distillery, same age statement, that sort of thing. I like to pace
Yeah.
myself on those. So anyway, um, crack that one open, but let me switch us over back to base view here. All right, let me
Mhm.
fan this out for now. So one other thing that I think we decided we want to talk about, I recently posted a review of Ardbeg Spectacular, the new Feis release.
Yeah.
Liked it. It was pretty good. I think I was a little disappointed in the casks. It said port. The thing I read was port and bourbon. Well, it's refill port and bourbon. So it wasn't exactly what I expected when I basically pre-ordered it from Total Wine for the
Mm.
$5 off. But I ended up liking it quite a bit.
Mhm.
I'm not I have the bottle here. I'm not gonna pour it because, as I told you, and I think I've mentioned on the videos, I'm taking at least a short hiatus from heavily peated
Mhm.
whiskeys, just drinking some bourbon barrel and some sherry barrel stuff. But,
Fair enough. Yeah.
I found out,
Good.
that your addiction took hold again. You couldn't resist, and, the old cult of Ardbeg took back over, and, you purchased a bottle yourself, which is one of the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
Ardbeg I bought in a while.
yeah, it had been a while. It was actually it kinda mirrored you pretty well on accident. The last one I had bought was, well, I guess the last one I bought was Ardcore. Ardcore was after Fermentation, right? Was
Yeah,
the one after? And that was the
yeah.
last bottle of Ardbeg I had bought, which I guess at this point was 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer.
Was
Um,
was the
maybe
Hypernova, did
3.
you get a bottle of the Hypernova?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember, 'cause I used to buy all
Yeah.
your Ardbeg for you, 'cause
Yep, yep, yep.
it was
Yeah, I remember Hypernova, I deliberately I'm like, "Okay, I'm done with this." 'Cause again, it's good, but
yeah,
um,
the value,
the
the
price, like, versus what it
it's not
was
even
exactly.
it's not even that much different. Yeah, that was my problem. They were never really all that much different from what was already available.
Mhm.
But
But,
anyway, yeah, I found
yeah,
out
no,
that you
I was in the store, I was actually picking up those Loch Lomans,
hmm,
and, walked by, saw again, they have a few art bags on sticking on the shelves nowadays, and, the Spectacular was brand new, I'm shocked they had it in already. So I looked at it, and then I was looking there. I think it's the Anthology 13-year-old right next to it. I'm like, you know what? I should grab one of these. It's been a long time. So I just kind of want to do a check-in. I'd heard good things about the Spectacular, and I was like, all right, shoot, let's just grab the Spectacular and head home. And then we had a Zoom a couple days later, and you said you had gotten it. I was like, ah, but yeah, no, yeah, we've both got it, and yeah, I've uh I've been sipping on that, and it's yeah, like I said, it's good. I'm definitely enjoying it more, I think, than the last few committee releases I had.
Good. Well, that's good. Yeah. The reason why you were like, nah, because we you wanted to like send it to me
Yeah,
without me having tasted it to see what my unabashed opinion was. But and I like I
yeah,
said in the video, I would not have bought it if I didn't have the YouTube channel. I would have been happy to just wait for I pick up the new
mm,
or the next Port Charlotte cask exploration series or something like that, which tend it's probably been I haven't had the last couple, but generally speaking, for a similar price, those tend to have blown the Ardbegs out of the water. So,
mhm,
um, but yeah, so I gave it a 7. I liked it well enough. Didn't necessarily catapult it past some of the other 10-year-old-ish age-stated, heavily peated whiskeys I've reviewed lately. It was different enough. I could have maybe given it if like, maybe I would have given it a 7.5 or something like that if I did half scores. I did like
mhm,
it quite a bit. Um,
mm,
but you, you have another favorite whiskey, kinda annual release that you've discovered recently, and that's in and you got so you picked up the new Lagavulin Offerman edition fairly recently as well,
yep,
and you were comparing those 2.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think about those?
I I've gotten the last three. So this is the third Offerman edition I've picked up. I had the Guinness casks and then the Charred Oak. Um, and I was kind of iffy on the Guinness casks one, if I'm being honest. Like it was fine. Again, it was kind of fine. I liked the Charred Oak casks. I actually still have a little bit of that one left. That one's actually on my kill list. But no, I like getting the Offerman ones because it's reasonably priced. 46% Lagavulin. Love love Lagavulin. I'm actually kind of re-entering, I think, like a heavily peated stage of my journey, which is kind of fun. The last 6 months or so, I've kind of been on a lighter. I wanted like no cask influence. I wanted my whiskeys to be as pale could be. And now I'm kind of like, okay, let's get those flavors back. Let's get heavily peated. Let's get sherry. Let's get whatever. So I'm kind of flip flopping to the opposite end. But yeah, no, I wanted to kind of on for my own benefit, really, especially because they came out so recently and they're both pretty new bottles. So like, not like one bottle's half empty or anything. And I actually so I did a blind earlier today of just I put them both in dark or solid colored glasses. Couldn't see the colors because the Lagavulin is a little bit darker liquid. But that was yeah. I will say just right off the bat that the new Lagavulin or the new Offerman is delicious. It is my favorite of the three uh, Offerman bottles, and I'm so happy to have a Lagavulin back on my shelf that I really enjoy. Um,
Great.
but the blind, I was kind of going through, and one of them was kind of it had some nice complexity to it. It actually was kind of almost reminding me of like a heavily peated Glen Scotia Victoriana. It kind of had like a little bit of that fudgy, nougaty sensation. It was a little bit a little bit fudgy, but not like decadently so. Like a heavy sherry
Mhm.
bomb. But it was yeah, its complexities. It was nice, and then there was one that was a little bit darker. The other one I should say was it was a bit like of a darker flavor, is a bit more toffee, bit more. The other one was actually a bit more of that decadent, edging on that decadent style, although maybe not quite as fudgy.
Mm,
Kind of more again like toffee molasses kind of a thing, which uh, should have kind of given me a hint that I was getting kind of molasses on one,
mm.
but it but I kind of ignored that. As you drink blinds, you kind of well, I think this one's probably the Ardbeg and this one's probably the Lagavulin. I initially pegged the Ardbeg as kind of the darker one,
Mm.
just because in my head I think so I'm not super used to the bottle yet, and in my head, port is a pretty dark influence to me. It's usually like it's kind of how I associate it with like the more richer, dark, deeper flavors. But no, the Ardbeg's actually the lighter one. That was kind of the one I was getting almost like heated Glen Scotia Victoriana vibes.
Mhm. Okay.
Um,
'Cause I can see that, yeah.
but no, it's like that one probably had a bit more complexity. I would actually probably say that the Ardbeg is the probably the more well-made, complex, however you want to phrase it, whiskey. But if you but the Lagavulin again, it was kind of a bigger, a little bit more bold, and it was again more edging on that decadent kind of a side. So if you want more of like a flavor bomb, the Lagavulin might be the way to go if you're interested in one or the other.
Oh,
Um, but but no, I loved them both, and I was just surprised that I got them flipped because usually I can tell Ardbeg. Like Lagavulin, I actually have a harder time like drinking a random glass and saying, "Oh, that's Lagavulin." Ardbeg, I'm usually pretty good with, but yeah, not this time. I just had them flipped, but no, both very happy from both of those bottles.
that's great to hear. Yeah, I haven't bought the Offerman bottlings. You hear good things. I
Hmm.
would have no problem picking one up. Just I've always felt I have a backlog of heavily peated whiskeys, so I just haven't grabbed one.
Hmm.
Um, I go through them pretty slowly, although that was a phase, so, I've been really enjoying them lately. I gave the Lechek 18 a 9 out of 10.
Hmm.
That one grew on me really quickly. Didn't really expect it, but I was having a little bit before I did the review, and it was like, "Oh, I'll probably give it an 8," and I poured a little bit just to get my brain thinking about tasting notes. I was like, "God damn it."
Yeah,
I
it,
so and I had been like I had refrained from giving some things a 9, so it's just like, I'm not holding back on this. I just really like this. This is just hitting the spot. So, um, but yeah, the Offerman edition, at some point, I'll probably start picking those up regularly because they're a good price. I, they're like the Carchus bottlings, right? It's
yeah.
hard for you to really go wrong. You're gonna get something that it's gonna be a good Laphroaig, depending on the cast types and that sort of thing. Maybe you like it
Mhm.
more, maybe you like it a little less, but generally speaking, they're under $100 generally here in the US. In terms of value, I still I'm a fan of the Cartridge series just because it's not cast strength anymore these days. It's 50, this year it'll be 52.4 for 2024. But you're getting they I think Lafroig does the release is right. I think the Port Charlotte gets it right because they're taking their spirit and they're doing something different and unique. And when you buy the bottle, it tastes different
Mhm.
every year. And now Lagavulin is doing that. And I haven't bought the bottle. So would you say that those releases are distinct enough? Because you have a rum release this year and you had heavily charred and you had beer cast. Like how big of a variation would you say you've
Yeah, I'd
experienced?
say it's pretty big. Again, so I have like in terms of like the regular Lagavulin, like I have a Lagavulin 8 that I go to o- often enough. I haven't had a 16 in a while. But you sent me a 16 like 6 months ago or something, and really enjoyed it. Actually, more than I kind of anticipated I would have. So, but no, I would definitely say they're distinct from those kind of expressions.
Mm,
Um, the Guinness one, maybe negatively so, but
mm, mm.
like that one, I was not a fan of. No, the charred oak definitely has a nice difference to it. This rum cask, I would say, is an even bigger difference, but it's delicious. This is like the first one I'm raving about.
Good. Okay.
I'm excited. I'm happy for this one.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that is just because I don't know if it seems like Isla, the annual releases, Campbelltown as well, but in my mind, those are like bigger events. I don't know that they
Mm,
have these more annual, more s- consistently released special releases, quote unquote. Obviously, distilleries all over Scotland do that as well, but
mm,
uh, being heavily peated, and maybe as someone who doesn't drink heavily peated whiskey all the time, like I like it when there's a bigger variation from release to release.
yeah.
So, like with the Ardbeg releases, that's kind of what I was saying is yes, there were differences, but they weren't. they weren't big enough to a
I
capture my imagination or justify me paying more than what's already available.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would maybe also add on the caveat of it was maybe different, but it wasn't maybe necessarily for the better. you know,
Well, that's
um,
possible too, yeah.
like,
But
like one of them, I forget which one exactly it was. I'm like, this is just kind of weird and not in a good way. It wasn't maybe bad, but it was just
art
um,
like a Ardbeg or do you not remember what
it was like
distillery?
maybe the hardcore, maybe
The
for
Ardcore.
like the
The
malt,
Ardcore
malt,
definitely
malt.
did not get a good
Yeah,
reception.
it was one of those. I'm
Yep.
like, yeah, this is different, but not in a way that I want it to.
Yeah, that was the same thing with the
I agree with
fermentation. Or I was like, and the fermentation is different than the 10, and if I put them side by side, it would probably be more apparent how different they are. But the 13-year-old age statement and the super long fermentation time and the uncovered washbacks and that sort of thing. I was like, "Oh, that sounds like such a geeky, nerdy whiskey. I'll pay the 200 plus dollars that that
you
bottle
to
costs to get."
experience. Yeah.
And I got it. I'm like, "Yeah, this is good, but there's nothing about it that I." Again, if I did side by side and was like, then I could enjoy it, but just like pouring myself a glass of it is, still
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Um, where I think the spectacular, it definitely has some.
Mm,
It's definitely different. It's definitely got that toffee. Um, I think I said peanut brittle. I think is what I was kind of getting on it. The smoke, it seemed like the smoke really held up. Even some of the whiskey in there's 13, 15 years old. Um, almost maybe even seemed a little bit smokier than even the 10. Uh, which maybe again, I did side by side the first night and my palate was not good. I thought I
mm.
hated the spectacular the first time I
Oh,
poured it.
yeah.
'Cause I drank a little bit of the 10 and I was like, "Okay, get my palate warmed up." And then I drank the spectacular. I'm like, "No, this is not doing it for me." And then I had a sip of like I was doing the tasting notes for the Lechik 18 and I took a sip of that. I'm like, "Okay, my palate is completely screwed up." It's like, "I'm stopping now. I'm not
Come
wasting
back
any more
another night,
whiskey on
yeah.
this palate." So, the first night I was actually mad until I took a sip of the Lechik and I'm like, "Okay." Something it's me. It's a me problem.
I'm the problem, it's me.
But moving on to Ardbeg. So we wanna talk a little bit about some just general news. Did you see the Ardbeg Vintage Y2K edition?
Yeah, yeah, I did. To me, it just harkens kinda back to the I don't remember the names of them, but one of them they, like, buried the barrel in a peat bog or something to age it,
Yeah.
and then, I forget if it was that same bottle or a different one where they had the, uh, the blockchain tickets or whatever to and then this is,
Yeah.
I think, kind of falls in that line of
Well, so
I don't even paid any attention to it.
the cool thing about it is that this was distilled shortly after the millennium started, uh, which in and of itself, not all that particularly interesting. But what makes it interesting, I guess, is that um, here, let me get my screens sorted out here. Here we go. So first off, the box is ridiculous, but also kind of cool.
It's kinda cool.
It's like a
I
Lego.
don't hate that.
It's like a Lego circuit board looking thing, and so this was distilled in the old Ardbeg stills. They replaced it in February of or sometime in 2001. They replaced their stills.
Mhm,
So this is old stills, but as their marketing mumbo jumbo says that it benefited from the new ownership. So once Glenmorangie or LVMH or whatever they were called back then took over,
mhm.
um, so it has the old stills, but the benefit of using higher quality casks, quote unquote. So the newfound attention towards cask quality or whatever the thing
The
says.
spiel is
The problem with it, of course, so it's 23 years old and it's retailing for 670 pounds, which puts it around 800 bucks or so.
yep.
So obviously the Ardbeg pricing is in full effect here. It's only 46%. I'll let you guys check out the tasting notes and stuff on your own if you had the press release, because it's all press release stuff anyway. So, but yeah, the box I am kind of like,
It's a neat box. Sure. Yeah.
is it $800 box? I'm sure that was. I mean, again, they're good at kind of hooking you with it's the old stills right before we got rid of them. It's still like the last whiskey distilled on these stills,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, I'm not gonna pay $800 for it. So
Yeah, I mean, it definitely reminds me of the Ardbeg 25 from 2 years ago. That was, what, 11 or $1,200? That,
yeah, about $1,200 in the states. Yeah, we saw
that
as high as
that
1,500, but 1,200
that
was.
there are, like, Bennies and Total Wines around here where they still have half a dozen of them marked down to 1,000
Mhm.
still on the shelves 2 years later, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they haven't been deterred. That $1,200, I think you're right. I think I saw as high as 15. Like, I don't know. Obviously, the pricing isn't meant to be logical. It's priced for something else, for some other
Mhm.
reason. It's gonna be a collector's edition, or it's gonna be worth $1 billion someday. Obviously, when you're looking at this stuff, the price is not a if you care about the price, you're not gonna buy it, I guess.
Yeah. It
Like, if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford it, sort
yeah.
of,
It's not
you
for
know?
you.
Like, that sort of say, so it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, they do a good job of piquing your curiosity, but, um, I mean, it's not gonna be hard for me to say no to it,
No.
but, I hope you get drunk one night or something and buy one, or do something dumb so I can try it, but I'm not
Not
gonna.
impossible. Not impossible.
It's not won't be the first time, but,
Would not
uh,
be the
yeah, I mean, I've made overly excited purchases myself,
first.
state of whiskey bliss, but, definitely try to definitely try to avoid that. I should do something on my phone where I can't access any of the whiskey websites
Yeah.
after, like,
With
9 p.m. or something like
parental
that.
controls on your phone after 9
Yeah,
PM.
parental controls for myself, yeah, pretty much. It's after 9 p.m. Nah, you can't buy any whiskey. There's no whiskey buying allowed. But I just brought that up. We were talking about Ardbeg, and I kinda just wanted to show the box because the box, like, it's dumb, like, it's really dumb, but I also just absolutely love it. So,
It's good design.
yeah, it's like a
I'll give it
like a
that.
Lego motherboard
Yeah.
or a circuit or whatever, but anyway, that's Ardbeg. Let's let's come back here, and let's see, I think I closed this thing out. So there was one other story. I'm not gonna bother trying to pull it up here because I didn't have it ready, and StreamYard seems to forget what what I had set up before. So, um, one other thing before we go, just an interesting conversation. Um, a few days ago, Scotch Whisky Auctions sent out an email to its users stating that they for all the people that were going to the Feis festival, which is happening like I don't know, like now or this weekend or next, like later this week, something like that.
Just
Um,
around.
yeah, I'm trying to think of the days because I think the 29th was they had a drop off date uh, at the uh, Kennecraig Ferry Port, which is due north of Campbelltown. It's on the peninsula. It's like halfway in the middle of the peninsula. There's a ferry that goes over to Isla, and so you can go to Isla, you go to Faygiel, you can buy all of your festival bottlings, and as you step off the ferry back on the mainland, there's a Scotch whiskey auction booth or something that you just go and you hand them your bottles that you purchased earlier that day or the day before, and those will be on the auction that starts 2 days later on the 31st.
Mhm.
So obviously this hits like Reddit. I saw a couple posts here and there, and some Facebook posts on some groups, and people aren't happy that Scotch Whisky Auctions is making it so easy to just flip your bottles. and we never talked about it here. I haven't talked about
Yeah.
it on the channel much, if at all, about just the market, the market, quote unquote, auctions, secondary. It affects bourbon, it affects scotch, and it gets people pretty riled up.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I obviously have my opinions on it. They've evolved over time. Some of it was like, oh my God, Scotch Whisky Association is, or the Scotch Whisky Auctions, SWA, gets my brain
Yeah. There's
all
two of
turned
them.
around.
Yep.
The auction houses are encouraging bottle flipping. Oh no. And it's like they're an auction house. Of
Yeah.
course,
That's their
like they
business
make money.
model. Yeah.
But there is also this question of we'll have to wait and see whether any of these people actually make money because the distilleries are charging ridiculous prices for these bottles.
Mhm.
And the auction market has softened over the last year or so. So I don't know. How how irate do you get over bottle flippers and
How
invest
irate?
yeah,
I
I'm saying that somewhat facetiously.
Yeah. No. I it doesn't really bother. And here's kind of why. At least if we're speaking about this specific Fajil thing, um, you know, I would definitely a vast majority of the people who are going to utilize this service, we're going to flip their bottles anyway.
Mhm.
Um, it's not like you went to the island and you were so happy to buy these bottles, and you get off the boat and you go, oh, well, shoot, let me do that instead. Like, no, like you either bought it to resell it or you bought it to drink it.
Sure.
So to make it easier for the people who are going to do it anyway, sure, I don't care. And that's their business model. That's how they make money. If they want to make it easier for their customers, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't really think that this is going to be like changing anyone's mind as they get off the boat to sell their bottles or anything.
Sure.
Um, so that doesn't bother me at all. And then at the same time, just bottle flipping in general is it annoying? Sure. Does it hit you in the FOMO and jealousy and all those feelings? Sure, but there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
You can either participate and buy the bottles you want to buy, or you don't. And the world's going to continue on. No amount of protests is going to change any. So it's just you just learn to live with it, and I don't get mad about stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
kind of a factor of the hobby, and I accept it as it is, and I either participate or I don't. so
Sure.
um,
Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
mean,
what do you think?
I mean, I obviously spend more time, kind of in the bourbon world and stuff like that, and the idea of bottle flipping there
Yeah.
is 100 times worse than it is in scotch.
Yeah, you've definitely got
So
that extra perspective on it. I don't really interact with bourbon or market at
and,
all.
there's a time when, I kind of when Springbank, just in general, from just a brand or, to a distillery, anything that they sell is quote unquote allocated, hard to get, it's inflated, it's big on secondary markets. If you want one, you chances are you're gonna have to go to the auction houses and things like that.
Mm,
Outside of maybe the 10, you get lucky here and there. And, obviously watching a lot of Scotch content or being on Scotch forums and that sort of thing, it's like the peop people like losing their minds. Oh my God, Springbank, the flippers and this and that. I'm like, oh, what was the uh the George Martin response to, I think, was it J.K.
uh,
Rowling's? J.K.
J.K.
Rowling.
Rowling's, yes, yes, yes.
She said something like, "It's so hard to kill off my characters," or something, and George Martin was like, "Oh, my sweet summer child." That was
Yeah.
like that was like my feeling. But when I hear people like, "Oh, I can't buy Springbanks, it's BS." I'm like, "Oh, my sweet summer child." It's
Yeah.
like it's
I'm
one
glad you're not
distillery
into it.
here, it's like every any bottle of bourbon that's even remote, like one channel does one review and you'll never buy it again. So
Mm,
it's like, obviously I get it. Like, I don't want to be like facetious or like, like look down on anybody because it sucks. It sucks. It does.
Yeah.
But like the ridiculousness over bourbon is so much worse that I've had to kind of face it there. Scotch, it never bothered me because it was even with Springbank, it was like, well, I have to pay 20% more, 50% more for a lot of their bottles or double. I'm like, man, there's bottles of Buffalo Trace that are 5, 6, 10 times retail.
Mhm.
So paying double retail doesn't seem all that bad. You know, this
Yeah.
perspective, right? Like there's a lot of bourbon bottles that you'd be happy to only pay double retail or whatever.
Mhm.
So, not that that's good, not that it's good. It's just kind
No,
of, as you mentioned, it's kind of the world you live in. And if
the way it is.
you have a choice, you can either dedicate time, effort, even money, making relationships and these sorts of things. So where you can possibly at some point have the opportunity to buy these bottles at a reasonable price, or if you want it bad enough, you just pay what it costs,
Yeah.
And in the US, even with Springbank, it was even we have to pay secondary pricing
Yeah.
no matter
It's
what.
secondary pricing on the shelf here.
Yeah, like that's retail pricing here. It's not Springbank's fault. It's other mechanisms, but um, so bottle flip, as you mentioned, bottle flipping sucks. Or and
It
for the
feels
for the
bad, yeah.
drinker, like it feels
Mhm.
bad. That's what it does because I mean, that there's people that just have shelves and shelves of the stuff you want to drink, and or it went on sale yesterday and it's on an auction house today, and it's like I could have bought that and be drinking it right now. It sucks.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. But as you mentioned, complaining about it, not going to change anything. I have bought things at inflated prices because I wanted them.
Mhm.
I don't do it a lot. I don't like it, but there happened a couple of times where I was like, I want it, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm going to
You
buy this
you
month or
you
whatever it is.
either
I'll
either
forego other things.
participate or you don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really what it
Um,
boils down to.
so at least in terms of this thing, it's a little shocking to see. To get an email to say, hey,
Mhm.
you could have bought your bottle 2 hours earlier, and then you can
Yeah.
drop it off here, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That's the
barely even
optics
get
the optics are not great.
no, but to be mad at Scotch Whisky that was, "Oh my god, they're promoting flipping." They're an auction house. Like, this is how they make money, and being shocked that they're gonna promote flipping or bottle investment or anything like that is just, like, if you
Yeah.
the only people that are mad at that are not buying whiskey from auctions to begin with, so,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where, like, I've said this before, but spending time angry about any of this just seems like time that could be spent drinking good whiskey and not worrying about it. But yes, it does
Mhm.
stink. It does stink.
Yeah.
It's frustrating at times, but the longer you're in it, the more like people are going to do it. If there's a market for me to buy something for $50 and turn around and sell it for 75, people are going to do that. Um, and if you can buy it for 50 and sell it for 200, people are going to do that. Like
More
it's
people are
just,
gonna do that. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, it stinks, but you're not going to stop people. It's unless you're going to have a government the government put the Secret Service on it, or the CIA or the MI6 or something on it, like, you're
Actually, somewhat maybe ironically is you going on the internet and complaining about it is drawing attention to it, and people are like, "Oh, shoot, I can do
it
that."
it's
You know?
impossible to buy this. People
You
are
might
selling
just
it
be
for 10 times more.
creating more flippers by complaining on the internet.
Yeah,
So, um,
but people are taking losses lately,
yeah,
and that's the thought with some of these Fagio bottlings is and
how they're
maybe
gonna make money.
and here's the thing, if every single person that is intending to flip the bottle drops it off and it's at the first auction, nobody's gonna make any money 'cause
Yeah, true.
it's only worth money if the supply is low, and if you're getting 80% of every barrel that was bottled on an auction house the next 2 days later, like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna make any money on that stuff, and you'll be lucky if you break even.
And
God forbid someone.
that's before the auction house takes their cut.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
God forbid someone opens one of them and tastes it and it's not good, which I think a lot of people kind of assume some of this, "Hey, no one's gonna open this, so new bottle,
Yeah.
whatever." So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, it's a thing that I just kinda like you said, I've been around bourbon long enough to know that it gets way worse. How you need to what you need to do to acquire bottles, these is ridiculous. It's not
Mm,
worth it.
mhm.
You don't even know if the bourbon is gonna be good. There's
Yeah.
So people saying there's declining quality there, but that's another episode. So, yeah, it was a
Mm.
shocking thing just to kind of like,
Well,
sometimes when, like it's like the saying the quiet part out loud, I
yeah.
guess, it's like, you knew it, but you're like,
Yeah. And actually to kinda harken back, especially to people who don't know, um, I would say, and I think you'd agree, part of the reason that you're even here doing a Scotch channel is because of the bourbon market, right? Because you kinda gave up
"Oh,
on
yeah."
bourbon at one point there because it was too
Yeah,
hard to
well, yeah,
find
and
and too
it's only
crazy.
gotten worse since
You
then. I
were tired
mean,
of chasing it and
yeah, even around that time, it's one thing I didn't really mention, like, if I could the prices I was being asked to pay for bottles at that point that ticked me off enough or just frustrated me enough, I would happily pay them today. They're 2 or 3 times more than that, so,
Right.
um but yeah, that's true. It's just I probably would have figured it out eventually one way or the other, but it was a very stark moment it was just one of those, stake posts in the journey
Mhm.
sort of thing, but, I'll never be a one that rants about flippers and even people who are investing in bottles because people are gonna do that no matter what. Unless you want a different economic system, that's the way it's gonna work. So,
Yeah.
um, supply and demand, whiskey's a limited resource. You can't just make more of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot of cynicism, there's a lot of BS, you gotta watch out for that, but, hey, just and I guess that's what,
Absolutely.
just think about that, like, a lot of these bottles that these people are buying, hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever, are crap. So,
Yeah.
no one will ever know because no one's ever gonna open them and drink them. So, uh, or even if 1 or 2 people do and they post a YouTube video about it and say, "This is trash," it's not gonna stop it. They're not like
Yeah.
those people aren't watching those YouTube channels. So, anyway, just an interesting thing. It's something that I'm sure will come up on the channel at some point. Not something I wanna harp on or like I said, my feelings about it are fairly whatever. If you wanna
Mhm.
pay like, I always see posts on, like, the bourbon groups, like, "Is this bottle worth it?" And there was one guy on one he was like an admin or kinda one of the main guys on one of the bourbon groups, and he's like, "It's worth it if you're willing to pay it." And it's like, stop asking whether it's like, it's worth it if you buy it and you're happy, and
Yeah, but,
that's
no
all
one
that
knows
matters.
what that even means. So,
So,
such a
it's like, yeah,
nebulous thing, what it's worth
yeah.
or
What value, as I've mentioned, is highly subjective, and I bought things just so I'll buy it one time and I'll taste it, and I'll know if I ever have to care about it again, and that's worked for me. Yeah, you buy it once, it's not like it's gonna be something you're buying every other month or anything, it's
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
need to know, so I'll pay an extra $50 or whatever it is just to soothe my own brain. As
yeah,
I've gotten more experience, yeah, it's less of an urge to do that unless it's something really specific that I'm already know that I might really like that. So,
yeah, yeah,
that makes me more curious, but, all right, well, we've been going at it for a while here. I think we've covered most of the topics we anticipated covering. It was fun. It's always good just to kinda sit back and talk about whiskey and
yeah,
share a few
yeah.
drams. I hope, the
Mhm.
listeners, those of you that listen, found some value in 2 guys who just like whiskey talking about it and sharing their thoughts. But before we wrap it up, is there anything else you've got for the audience or any promotions you got a big sale going on at the store you need to promote or something like that?
No, no, nothing like that. I just want to do a quick comment. I actually thought about it when I was mentioning the Laphroaig Carchus with the PX cask, because that this year's
Mm.
release is another PX cask, sort of harkening back to that one. I'll definitely be having my eye
Yeah.
open for that one to drop.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah, they're doing
one of
it's a
these episodes in
10-year-old
the
age-dated
future.
cartridge too.
Yeah, it's 10 years old. It's age stated. We don't get that pretty much ever. Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, a little bit of a throwback, I guess, to a couple of their previous releases, including the PX one you mentioned. So, yeah, as long as it's still under $100, it's one of those ones. It's you and hopefully, I mean, someday it's
Yeah,
going to cross the line, but
that age statement makes me a little nervous. Sub
yeah,
$100.
yeah.
I don't
I mean, what does the 10-year cast strength is that's at $90, 100
I
is that
think it's about
$100?
90 around here. So,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yes, probably push a bit over 100.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. We'll see. It'll probably be $100, but hopefully not
Yeah,
too much more.
we'll see. Anyway,
All right, everyone. Well,
thank you for
thank you
having me
for
on. Always a
no,
blast.
obviously, despite my jokes, you're welcome. Welcome anytime. Sometimes,
They're
you
my terrible
you
takes.
you kinda woke me up a little bit this time and like, "Hey," there will be a podcast, either next week or the week after this is posted. That'll be my 18-year-old,
Yeah,
series wrap up
looking
where I'm
forward
gonna
to
try
that.
to just gather some thoughts. It's gonna be it's, um, definitely as being at this for 5 years, there's still a lot to learn, and this was a big step in a learning
Mhm.
moment because obviously even the bottles I've drank so far, I'm gonna have different opinions on them in a year, but this was actually me exploring an entirely new category of whiskey that I had ignored. So it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. I've got a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of tangential topics that I can cover. I'll try not to get too. This is gonna be me talking, so I gotta try to keep it not too droning, but we'll see how that goes. I might have to record it more than once, who knows? But, I want it to be good. It's been a lot of fun. So check that out. Uh, by the time this comes out, the Port Charlotte 18 review will already be posted. That's scheduled to come out here in about 5 hours. So you'll have already seen that. All the videos will be available. I gotta remember to make, a new playlist. So just watch all the way through because that's how someone would wanna spend an entire day of their lives, is watching me try to talk about whiskey. Um, but thank you all, for watching that series. If you haven't, check out 1 or 2 of them. See if it interests you. Thanks for watching this. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and all the great comments and all the support that I've gotten thus far. As we enter the summer months, keep an eye out for a video. Might even be out before this. But check the channels. I'm going to be soliciting some requests, just some ideas from the community for summer content. Try to expand my repertoire, so to speak. With that, thank you everybody, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Hopefully, it won't be too long. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.